What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 4 edition of the Pro Football Focus show here on RotoGrinders. I am Britt Devine, here with my new PFF. Sorry for the pun there, Ian. Ian Hartitz. You can find him at IHARTITZ on the Twitter.com machine. Ian, it's been I've been having a blast with football. That Thursday night game last night, right? Two horrible teams, but you got to soak it up, right? We thought, 2 or 3 months ago, we were wondering if football was even going to play. Here we are. The Titans are having a little bit of an issue, but the NFL keeps on rolling. There's money to be made. Fantasy. Life's pretty good out here in the fantasy world.
If there's live football, I am going to be watching it. I mean, yeah, like you said, man, the place we were in a couple months ago, I mean, to complain about Jets Broncos, that's just not good for, the old karma machine out there. So, yeah, bad football for sure. Not going to be put on any coaching clinic tapes anytime soon, but I had a hell of a good time watching it.
Yeah, that was fun. And we'll talk about this a little in our betting section, but it looks like, we said the first couple of weeks, I think our bets were pretty good. And I think Vegas was wrong on them last week. We said they're getting tougher. Now they realize, hey, there's no penalties in the NFL anymore. So all the over-unders are juiced way up out of the range. It's going to be a lot of scoring, I think, barring those trends holding. And I think they will, right? Because we saw the past interference penalty last year, right? Where they're just like, we don't care how egregious it is. We're just not going to overturn it, right? And I think that's what's going to continue in the NFL. So there's a lot of scoring, a lot of new strategies, but let's sort of jump right into your mismatch manifesto. It's up on PFF. If you ever listen to this on podcast, if you ever can tune into the live show, you get a little screen share on this, but you kind of go through all the, explosive plays and battles in the trenches. Let's hash this out at the top of the show. Lots of overs, over 50 right now, lots of offense. How do we take advantage of that?
Yeah, so this general idea here, if we talk about a mismatch in football, it's always, third ranked offense versus 25th ranked defense. I've combined those numbers to give us, one base rate. And with explosive, pass plays, looking at this week, three main offenses or actually four main offenses are sticking out right now. The Texans and Deshaun Watson versus the Vikings. I think we all understand that. It's been a rough start for Deshaun Watson and the Texans with that hellacious start to the schedule, but he's averaging a career high right now in, adjusted completion rate and yards per attempt. So even without Hopkins there, we've seen the same old Deshaun Watson. I think that offense still has plenty of good days ahead. The Rams offense versus the Giants. Look, they've been a run-first offense, but when Goff has thrown, he's been efficient as, anyone could ask for, particularly throwing downfield. So in a spot where I think we're expecting Henderson to have his way, maybe take an extra long look at Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods because they're also set up well. The Packers offense versus the Falcons. We'll see with some of these, injuries. Hopefully Devontae Adams can get back out there, but, certainly expecting a lot of points in that game either way. And then finally the Bills offense versus Raiders. We'll see with John Brown. It sounds like he will be out there, but this is another situation where I think Josh Allen and company are clicking enough where if John Brown does miss time, look at Gabriel Davis sitting down there at a 3,200 on DraftKings because I don't think the Raiders are going to be slowing down this offense in week 4.
Yeah, I'll be talking about the Bills game in just a second, but I don't understand why they're just like 3-point favorites against the Raiders. I think they're just far and away the better team, specifically because Josh Allen has elevated his game, right? He's a lot more accurate. 300, what was it? No 300 plus passing yard gains. Now he's got 3 in a row to start the season. I mean, he's just lighting it up. But I'll give a couple of reasons for that in a second. But that's the explosive offenses. What else do we want to look out here? A couple other things you always want to look at is pace, right? A lot of teams are playing faster because there's not a lot of road noise. That might change over the season as more fans are integrated in the stadiums. But for right now, most stadiums have some sort of limited capacity on fans or no fans. That's allowing pace. It's more plays. There's less penalties. There's more points. It's fun for us at home. Everything's flashing green on FanDuel and DraftKings all the time. Hopefully for everyone out there, What can we look at for pace this week to exploit in DFS?
So yeah, a lot of teams are moving at a good pace, but then there's just a gap between them and then the Cowboys because they are just sprinting up and down the field. And you listen to McCarthy and Dak talk about it in the media, and this is not a situation where they've just been forced to do this. This is an active strategy that they want to employ. They want to run as many plays as possible on offense this year, and because of that, their situation neutral pace, which is just seconds per play. When it's not a blowout or anything, is 22.6 seconds. The next closest team is Washington at 26.1. So we have almost a 4-second difference in a situation neutral play between the Cowboys and the next closest team. So, a situation where they're playing the Browns, who, as we've seen this year, get out to leads, not ask Baker to do all that much, and just be able to lean on the run game. Not so sure that's going to be the case this week. The Cowboys have been able to bring out, the best in their opposing offenses thanks to, their own high scoring offense, and two, just their piss poor defense to start, particularly in the secondary. So really like that Browns Cowboys games, chance at a shootout. The two really slow paced games I maybe, just take a second look at before investing too heavily in anyone is Jaguars at Bengals and Seahawks at Dolphins. I wouldn't say bench any of these guys just because of the pace, but it is notable with Jacksonville moving at the league's slowest pace through 4 weeks. I would be a little bit more on the, potential Gardner Minshew bounce back if we could get that fixed just a little bit higher.
How dare you trash Russell Wilson in any way, shape, or form? I don't like this. Pace doesn't matter when you're throwing for like 4 touchdowns every game because you're so efficient. Right. So I'm not going to.
It's just a piece of the puzzle. That's all.
Yeah, I'm going to let you. In Dallas too, we saw Mike McCarthy. He was not lying, right? He said we're going to run as many plays as possible to try to keep up with Russell Wilson last week. Dude didn't lie. I think we got to believe him when he says some things after that. So that is a nice boost. I was hoping Kareem Hunt was going to be out. Looks like he's going to end up playing. So you're going to have that two-headed monster in the backfield, but I think you can give a nice little plays, pace, a couple extra targets spread around that Cleveland offense this week. What else you want to hit on your manifesto here? What else you want to talk about?
Yeah, looking at pressure rates between the O-line and opposing D-line, just some dudes that should be under a lot of pressure this week. Lamar Jackson versus Washington. The thing with Lamar is, okay, I looked at some of these quarterbacks and the pressure and also their time of release, because Lamar, he is under pressure a lot, but he's under pressure a lot because he holds the ball for a long time because no one can tackle him when he's back there. So that's fine. The bigger situation to worry about is Daniel Jones versus the Rams. I was on that Giants passing game last week. It just seemed like a situation, condensed target share versus a banged up 49ers defense. Didn't work out. With Jason Garrett calling plays right now, it's just they're bottom of the league in play action, motion, all the things smart offenses are doing. I think, again, with this matchup even now being far worse than it was last week, definitely don't be touching anyone too highly on that Giants offense. And then quickly, guys that should have all day to throw, Drew Brees versus the Lions, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Seahawks. And the only other thing I'd note here is that Joe Burrow, has been under pressure all season. Unlike, Lamar Jackson, Burrow's been under pressure, but he's actually also had a top 10 quickness of release. So he's getting the ball out quick. He's just still under pressure. This week, though, he might be okay because nobody has generated fewer pressures through 3 weeks than the Jacksonville Jaguars. So bad O-line in Cincy, I get it, but this might be the week that Burrow can overcome that.
Yeah, interesting. A couple cheap targets for him out there. You got to see if John Ross is inactive. Maybe we get the rookie. Maybe he's back in there again. Maybe AJ Green becomes the king of converting air yards into real yards. Finally, we'll have to see how that plays out. You mentioned the pace in that game might be slow. Got to work it all into a puzzle, though, for DFS.
Yeah.
A couple other things. Let's go to the trench battles. Offensive line, defensive line, in the run game. These are things that can be real important. What do you got for me in this one?
Yeah, so looking at yards before contact here to try to, just isolate line play instead of the running backs. But, we got a situation where we got a positive meeting a positive, and that's Dalvin Cook versus the Texans.
Oh, yeah.
Should have plenty of runway, and we all saw what he can do last week, with the ball in his hands. This dude truly is one of the league's best talents as a true ball carrier. So excited for that. Lamar Jackson and company versus the Washington football team. They're 14-point favorites. So these running backs are probably going to find the end zone. Who it's going to be, on their kind of respective 8 to 12 touches per game, we'll see. But if you can figure that out, that could be a little bit of an edge in a muddled situation. Patriots running back by committee versus the Chiefs. Interesting situation because, if Damian Harris stays out, maybe we can trust Sony Michel a little more. If James White stays out, maybe we can continue to trust Burkhead. But if they're all together, I think they're going to more or less cancel each other out with Cam getting all that goal line work. So only other situations I would mention is Los Angeles Chargers are not set up well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but when they're not set up well on the ground, that's almost a positive for Austin Eckler. And we've seen Justin Herbert over these last 2 weeks really reinvigorate both Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And I would just note that this is not the spot to, go back the well with Joshua Kelly. It looks like Justin Jackson is going to return to fold. So bad matchup and potential for those snaps to be getting split.
Yeah, you think that's not going to turn into a three-headed monster? I think it's going to become Eckler, and then the other two basically cannibalize each other, right?
Oh yeah. No, I don't think nothing's going to hurt Eckler. It's just going to hurt Kelly.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well here. A couple other things here. Passing game. Let's look at some yards per drop back. What do you got for me here?
Yeah, with the yards per drop back, kind of same thing as the explosive pass plays. And we're seeing Jared Goff, Josh Allen, and Russell Wilson really stand out as the top three offenses. So don't have a ton there. The last thing I want to touch on here, though, is combined offensive and defensive EPA per play. Man, it's, maybe it's just been league wide and the overs are hitting. But even last week, it was still the over was, I believe, 9-7 on the week as a whole. So contrary to popular belief, unders still have been hitting occasionally. But man, I mean, it's been a great trend so far with this combined EPA with where we have an offense combining their EPA per play with the defense's EPA per play allowed. And anyway, when we've had an offense on both sides of the ball with a positive number in these charts I've been making, 12 out of 15 on the overs so far. So, looking really good. Last week, the only game that busted was that Jaguars Thursday night game. So, again, another crop of contenders this week: Saints, Lions, Jaguars, Bengals, Vikings, Texans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Browns, Cowboys, Patriots, Chiefs, Bills, Raiders, and Falcons, Packers. I'm going back to well with it. The over-unders have been juiced up. I don't think it's a, one all be all trend or anything like that. So a situation, like the Bengals, Jaguars, perhaps, think about the pace and other things of that nature. But, there are worse overs to, hang your hat on than a situation where we can confidently project both offenses to, be at least in an above average spot.
All right. If you want to check out Ian's article, it is currently behind the paywall over at PFF, Ian.
Behind the paywall, but I've been telling people on the podcast,
premium content, it says right here with a little green flag.
Yeah, but I got a way how they can get a PFF sub for $20. That's you go to Monkey Knife Fight, daily fantasy and prop website. Use code PFF, deposit $20. You'll get a PFF Edge subscription, which is a $40 value for that $20, and then you can also use that $20 on Monkey Knife Fight to go try and make some money. So that's the code. Code PFF.
All right. Speaking of code PFF, right, here's another one. You want to save some more money? If you want to get a RotoGrinders premium subscription, normally it's $39.99. Devin is dropping it in the chat right now on YouTube for anybody. If you wanted to check it out, if you wanted to look at projected ownership, if you want to look at projections, if you want to look at Gridiron IQ, if you want access to Lineup HQ because you want to pump 150, 300, 1,000 entries into whatever the heck you want to every week, we are offering you a $5 discount. It is code PFF off your first month, $5 if you sign up at RotoGrinders Premium, and a little bit more if you want to get all the niche sports in our experts package. I believe it's called. You can save a couple more bucks there. But if you're just looking for baseball, basketball, football, and golf, we can save you $5, code PFF, when you sign up at RotoGrinders for your first month. All right, let's jump into our bets of the week. A couple ones. First thing I want to say is these big favorites this week. There's two I really like. I legitimately feel you can just add the Ravens and the Rams to win outright as to like any bet that you want, and you're just going to collect some extra coin on that. You can, I literally don't know how those teams lose this week. The matchups are just too good. Like even if Lamar Jackson breaks his leg on the first play of the game, the Ravens are going to win that. Even if Jared Goff goes down, the Rams are going to win that game. I just don't see anything where those two teams don't win. So you can just sort of tack those on, in my opinion. The two I like, I already mentioned, I like the Bills. Right. I know they're traveling across the country and the Raiders have looked okay, but the Patriots showed you what the Raiders are. They're just not really good. The Bills the Bills might be better than the Patriots. If the Patriots can whoop on the Raiders, I think the Bills can do the same, if not more. Very similar play styles, I think, in those games, both offensively and defensively. I don't know how the Bills don't just, win by double digits in this thing. So I like them -3. That's mine. I'll get to my second one in just a second. What are you looking at this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going back to well with the money line parlay. Was able to hit on that week 2. Went 1-on-1 against the spread picks last week, and mentioned the overs before. But yeah, we were talking before the show, and you mentioned the Rams Ravens, and I agree with you. I didn't think they would move the needle that much in the parlay, but as you were saying, just simple Bills Ravens Rams, you're able to get an extra $40 on there. So definitely recommend that. Excluding those teams for a second, though, I do have another 5-team money line parlay I'm a fan of this week. I'm with you on the Bills. I just don't think the Raiders are quite that team we saw. They knocked off the Saints, and we all kind of freaked out. But I think as we're seeing this version of the Saints offense
Yeah.
isn't quite the same juggernaut. I think the Cowboys are going to get back on track against the Browns. Just not sure the Browns are going to be able to keep up with that offense with the Saints. I think the Lions, hey, they got back in the win column last week, but still an offense that, is just trying to force feed Adrian Peterson 20 plus carries per game. I think we're going to see the Saints, if not be, the Super Bowl contender we thought. They're going to get back on track here. Buccaneers against the Chargers, Justin Herbert. I think we're just giving him, a little too much credit for staying with Mahomes in that week 2 spot. This is a spread that I think could easily be double digits. And then the Seahawks against the Dolphins. I know the Seahawks secondary has been a problem, and Fitzpatrick can probably put up some points, but I just don't see a way where the Seahawks are losing this game. So Cowboys, Saints, Buccaneers, Seahawks, and Bills. You can bet 100 to win $486. So almost, 5-1 right there. I'm a fan. Let's get it.
My other one's going to be Arizona. It took Kyler Murray throwing 3 picks last week for them to lose that game. I think they're just miles ahead of the Carolina Panthers in this game. Without Christian McCaffrey, the Panthers defense, we all thought it was going to be one of the worst. It's really playing out that way. I think Arizona's just too talented. I think Kyler Murray's too good. This DeAndre Hopkins ankle thing, well, it's up to him if he's going to play. Newsflash, DeAndre Hopkins is going to play. He's probably going to play well. Arizona -3.5 is my other one. I had them last week, right? That didn't work out. I'm not expecting Kyler Murray to throw 3 picks in a game, pretty much maybe for like his entire career. So I'm gonna take the Arizona -3.5 for my second bet here. So we're up to 5-2 on the season over here. Hopefully it goes to 7-2. And don't forget Ravens, Rams. It's always really it's tough putting those giant favorites. But I think you can literally, it's just free money this week. It's not free money like the 49ers against the Jets when Vegas was giving them to us at like -300. These are like -1,000, -600. But I legit don't know how they lose this week. So
Yes.
take a look at
Agreed.
that. All right, let's go to position by position. We like to talk some cash plays, some tournament plays. The first thing is this week's pretty wide open. There's a lot of mid-tier running back value. There's a lot of mid-tier wide receiver value. There's no, if Michael Thomas, do you want to play him? Do you want to play DeAndre Hopkins, who's really expensive, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of variety. There's no, Kyler Murray 6,100 like we had week 2 or whatever. There's no must-have quarterback in cash. So I think there's going to be some diversity this week. I just really think it's hard to make a lot of bad plays because I think all of these mid-tier plays are really good this week. I mentioned, I talked about the Bills. I like Josh Allen and cash at quarterback. The Raiders 28th in pass rush grade over at PFF, 27th in coverage grade. In close, he's the running back who's going to score the touchdowns. He's got 300 plus passing yards in all 3 games, 30 plus fantasy points in all 3 games. I just don't see. Imagine if Cam Newton ran in 2 touchdowns last week instead of Rex Burkhead getting them all, right? Everyone would be mashing Josh Allen. Don't look at it like that. I just think Allen's basically a lock to get you 25, something like that in fantasy points. He's got the 30 plus upside. I know a lot of other people were looking at like Deshaun Watson. There's Russell Wilson. The key is, right, I think you have to use these rushing quarterbacks on really good offenses that have shown these offenses are just better than everybody else out there. That's what you want to focus in on cash. I know you want to talk about Russell Wilson, really easy to stack with too. I'm not going to argue with you as long as you're picking from the known quantities in cash games this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's enough value, elsewhere, as you mentioned, that you can pay up at the quarterback position this week. And yeah, scholars debate if Josh Allen will ever throw for under 300 yards ever again at this point. So they truly are looking great so far. But yeah, just some of the cash game lineups I've been able to build so far, I have been able to get not only Russell Wilson, but also, Metcalf and Lockett in there together with some of the RB values elsewhere. So, if you do that, you have to pay down tight end and do some other things. But I do think it's worth it at this point because not only are Russ and this Seattle passing game just going off, but we have like really almost it's hard to name another situation like this where the target share is so condensed around two players. I mean, no one else is getting involved. And going into last week, Chris Carson was their number 3 receiver in targets, and now he's even banged up, so he's going to try to gut it out. But truly, I mean, there's just the scenario of Russ, going off, having his usual 300 plus yards and multiple touchdowns, and Metcalf and Lockett not being a big part of that. It's just tough to see right now. So, I'm continuing to go back to the well in a matchup that, again, Dolphins improved their secondary in the offseason, but Byron Jones was out in week 3. They shut down Gardner Minshew and company without DJ Chark. That's not scaring me off. I think Russ and company can put up points against anyone right now. I'm happy to pay up for it.
You mentioned Watson earlier, right? And some of the other things you talked about. Talk to me on him real quick, right? Because he's cheap. He hasn't been running as much, but you said the passing was more efficient. Just go explain that really quick in maybe 30 seconds for the people. Mainly me. I want to know about this too because I'm concerned.
Yeah, so just adjusted completion percentage, which is incorporating throwaways and all that jazz into it. Like he is at a career high right now, 74.7%, despite having those matchups against the Chiefs, Ravens, and Steelers. And the yards per attempt, again at 8.2, is as high as it's ever been. So prime buy low candidate, not only this week but moving forward. They get the Vikings, Jaguars twice, Titans, Packers, and Browns. I mean, look, we've seen Watson even in these worst case matchups. He's still been able to put up points. He's a king in garbage time, even if this game goes a little bit more awry than we think. I mean, Watson's floor, I think, just remains as high as ever.
All right. Tournaments. You like Russell Wilson. How about some Fitz magic this week? You might hear him dropping in a little bit later, at least for me here. 300 plus, 4 touchdowns. He's got some running upside too. What is not to like in this matchup here? He's going to be, I don't know, 5% owned or less. It's the cheaper end of the Seattle game. All of his targets are cheaper, right? So you get some more money. Hey, if you want Russ with Lockett and DK Metcalf, you're probably not going to have Kamara or Zeke or something like that. Well, you can get that with the Miami stack in there pretty easily. You can run it back with one of those top 2 options and have some extra money. There's literally no pass rush for the Seahawks, right? Didn't PFF, they had to study, was it pass rush or was it coverage? And apparently you got to have a little bit of each because nothing's working for Seattle right now with absolutely no pass rush. That's going to allow Fitzpatrick to chuck those deep balls. So I'm really liking them. Seattle's given up the most pass yards, most EPA per pass, the highest percent of pass plays, the most 20 plus passing yard plays, and the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. There's no Jamal Adams this week. How do you not want Fitzpatrick in tournaments? Our ownership is at 5%. I think that's about right because the high end at quarterback is so good and they've been so consistent on the high end of giving you performances that I think he's going to be able to sneak in under the radar. I am loving me the Dolphin stacks this week. Give me Fitzmagic. And the thing is too, you want to have that rushing upside. He's got a little bit of it. So it might not be Lamar Jackson, but he can run in for a touchdown. He can scramble for 40 yards, get you some free points that way too. What's not to like, Ian?
Yeah, and Quentin Dunbar is banged up too, in addition to Adams. So you already have this secondary that, again, has been god awful all season. And now it's even a banged up version of that. So I'm with you there. And there's definitely affordable stacks to make with Parker and Gesicki, maybe more on those guys in a bit. I'm looking at the Ohio QBs, Joe Burrow coming in. Look, like brutal start to the season in terms of this Bengals O-line and kind of, what we've seen there. But I think Burrow has been, a shining star kind of throughout this. He has been the fantasy QB9 through these first 3 weeks, despite all this, because volume. And that's what we love in fantasy football. League high 164 dropbacks through 3 weeks, kind of like Fitzmagic. Okay, Burrow's not going to confuse you with Lamar Jackson as a rusher anytime soon, but 16 carries for 64 yards and 1 score on the ground kind of reflects what we saw at LSU, which is the guy can get out there and make some plays when you don't respect him as a rusher. So Jaguars secondary, mentioned this in the earlier part, but their pass rush has not generated more pressures than anybody this season. I think the secondary, when we saw them against Fitzpatrick and Tannehill over the past 2 weeks, didn't come close to slowing them down. Burrow, Boyd, I'm going to go AJ Green, T. Higgins, plenty of affordable stacks to go pay up. And then Baker Mayfield, pretty much the same reasoning why we're going with Fitzpatrick, where he's facing an awful secondary. And I don't even think people know just how bad the Cowboys secondary has been, because they're pretty much number 2 behind the Seahawks, every metric and like yards allowed and all that. But they have been the single luckiest defense this year in terms of just drop rate against. I mean, everyone's been dropping passes against the Cowboys, and they've been catching more passes because they just can't cover them throughout the game. Cowboys remain banged up. The issue with this Browns offense is they've been so run heavy. I mean, only 23 pass attempts for Baker over these last 2 weeks. But, talking about the pace from before, talking about the Cowboys offense, their bad defense, if there's going to be a week where we can see, OBJ and Jarvis Landry get those double-digit targets to enable Mayfield to a big day, I think it's this one.
Yeah, I can get behind on all those extra plays that you talked about in the beginning. A big plus for Baker Mayfield. All right, that does it with the quarterback talk. Let's move on to the running back position, and let's we can duke it out over $5,700, $5,600 running backs here. We've got Mike Davis in one quarter, we've got David Johnson in the other. Do you want the running back who's caught 8 passes each of the past 2 weeks, catches? I don't even care what you're doing. Those are just so important, specifically on DraftKings, right? And Mike Davis, you've got David Johnson. I think he's going to have to give a little bit of work to Duke Johnson. So the law firm of Johnson and Johnson. If you need your no tears baby shampoo, you can get that in Houston this week. But I like Mike Davis. I think he's looking pretty juicy here. Back-to-back 8 receptions. Arizona's 23rd in run defense. They're allowing 27 fantasy points a game to running backs. Those are basically going to be all Mike Davis's fantasy points. He's playing 80+% of the snaps. They're allowing the 3rd highest success rate to running back passes. So those little dump offs, maybe they're, focusing more on outside receivers. Hell, you should, right? That's how you stop, if you want to play good defense, you should be doing that. But that just allows Mike Davis to get these little 6 and 7 yard receptions. Those count for a lot of fantasy points when you're getting 6 to 8 of them a game. I think I can trust him just a little bit more than David Johnson. Maybe it's the Deshaun Watson game that we have. And I know David Johnson can compete in the passing game. There's some good targets. Will Fuller, we were all worried about that hamstring there. He's just like, nah, I just gave him a day off. Did Bob. So we'll see what Deshaun Watson does this week. But I like Mike Davis. I know you like David Johnson. This is the tier to get maybe 2 or maybe even 3 or cash game running backs from this week.
Yeah, that's about saying. I'm not going to disagree with you with Mike Davis. Why not Mike Davis and David Johnson in the same line? If you can certainly do that. I know Ken and Drake sitting there with the dream matchup against the Panthers rush defense. And, even
You've given up on Drake. You've been on Drake. He just keeps burning us every week. If it's not this week for Drake, right, I might start crossing them off.
This needs to be the week for him. I mean, everyone can score touchdowns on the ground against the Panthers. So if Drake can't find it this week, if Kyler just keeps vulturing them, then maybe we'll need to take a step back. But no, I think Drake and Mixon and David Johnson, honestly, for season-long leagues, I know we're talking DFS, but 3 just prime buy low candidates right now because they have the workload we want, just haven't quite gotten the scores. And that's what it comes down to with David Johnson. And I think also if you want to pay down on defense, we'll get more into this later. I agree with what you're saying where there's not a prime defense that we should, be really targeting down there, but Houston at 2,500 is doable, particularly if you want to pair him with David Johnson. We've seen this Vikings offense look, pretty erratic all season, unless it's Dalvin Cook with the ball in his hands. So, mentioned Dalvin earlier. He has a good matchup. If Kirk Cousins has one of these floor games that, we've seen him have, this year and just in the past, I think a situation we could really benefit from. So Duke coming back. I mean, okay, I think I'll give you the nod with Mike Davis, slightly over David Johnson. But even if David Johnson's role drops considerably, he's going to go from 90% snaps to 70% and still getting 15, 20 touches. So he's looked good this year, man. I mean, I know broken tackles kind of get frowned upon in the fantasy industry, but I think it's at least a good enough sign to kind of denote how someone's doing, hashtag watch the film and all that. And David Johnson's forced missed tackles per touch rate are nearly double what we saw over the past 2 years and actually approaching his 2015, 2016 levels. So the volume that we all wanted him to have has been there, and he's looked better than I think we expected. So rough start the year, but I really think the Texans offense better days are here to come all around.
All right. So you mentioned Dalvin Cook. He is my GPP play of the week here. There's a couple of reasons. One, Houston just stinks, right? If you go to Gridiron IQ, I got it pulled up on the screen here, right? Real quick and easy way to see, hey, should you target X position against, defense? You pull up the rush tab, right? It's Christmas. It's all green over here on Gridiron IQ over on RotoGrinders. Houston's allowed the most rushing yards. They're allowing the highest percent of rush plays of anyone in the league. And Dalvin Cook, he's back. We were worried. Alexander Madison after week 1, right? I think he played like 40% of the snaps. Well, he's back to playing 20% of the snaps or less because Dalvin Cook, as he emerges, guess what? A really good running back in the NFL. Everyone's also spending on Zeke and Kamara. I think those are fine plays too, right? But that's where everybody's going. I mean, Dalvin Cook can outdo, as good as those plays are, Dalvin Cook can beat both of them by 20 points on any given week in fantasy points. So you get a little bit of leverage off the highest owned running back. Just save a couple of bucks on them too. What's not to like here? A total mismatch. You mentioned on the offensive line in the trenches there, at least in yards before contact. On Football Outsiders, it's adjusted line yards. Just a huge mismatch in favor of the Minnesota offense. And I went over the team grades. I look at those basically every week at PFF to see where teams are and where they're trending. Texans 26 in rush D grade as a team. I think Dalvin Cook's going to run all over, pass all over, score all over the Houston defense this week. And you could probably do it in cash. I think I would just go up to Kamara or probably Zeke. Those are obviously, I think, a little bit better plays. But in tournaments, the little ownership percentage you gain plus the ability of Cook to just have an enormous week. Couple extra bucks in savings. I like Cook in tournaments this week.
Yeah, I think it is good to mention though Kamara and cash, and we both seem to be on the same page there. At 8,000, man, I feel like he's 4 digits underpriced still because I mean McCaffrey was flirting with 10K for stretches.
If Thomas is back and fully expected to play here, do you think these last couple of weeks where Kamara, he's had double-digit targets in both of them, right? He had 14 and then he had 9. He's so efficient on those little dump offs, right? Because that is what Drew Brees' noodle arm could do. Dump it off to Kamara. But I mean, 81 receptions, right, on the year. That's what he's going to get. He's way over that right now. So he's got to come down at some point.
He's on pace for 144, but yeah, it's an unstoppable force, meaning an immovable object with the 81 receptions versus Drew Brees' noodle arm. So we'll see which one gives in when it's all said and done. But yeah, I do think there's enough value elsewhere. I've been pleased with the cash bows that can have Kamara in there. So with or without Thomas, I think he's in a great spot this week. But yeah, kind of echoing what you said about the just kind of chalky ranges is at the top, and then just that $5,500 to $6,000 range. So I think in tournaments, if you can kind of attack that, 6,000, that post Drake to kind of like the 7,200 range or so, might have some options because all these guys are set up pretty well. You can make a case for, seemingly all of them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, would be a lot more expensive if the pricing came out after Monday Night Football. You look at the Patriots defending these Chiefs back as receivers over the past few years. It's been a disaster. Kareem Hunt went for 2 touchdowns receiving, once over 100 yards receiving another time. Damian Williams in the AFC Championship had 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, Andy Reid just has Belichick's number when it comes to these receiving RBs, and obviously that's a huge part of Edwards-Helaire's game. James Robinson is the PPR RB5 this season and facing the Bengals' atrocious run defense. I know Chris Thompson gets involved, but I mean, hey, this guy's been producing and he's certainly not going to be, the chalkiest running back out there. Josh Jacobs at home looking at 20 plus touches and okay game script. Austin Eckler, chance to play from behind. Nick Chubb maybe set for more work and a great matchup without Hunt. I mean, again, I get the allure of the cheaper options, but if you just want to fade, some of these guys, your Mike Davises, David Johnson, David Montgomery, for just some of these, I think objectively more talented and better running backs that are still in good spots in tournaments. I think it's a really easy way to differentiate your lineup and not really hurt your upside.
And that $5,000 to $6,000 tier just got a little bit even juicier in tournaments because now we got the Ronald Jones. He's 4,700, and everyone, cost savings and algorithms and projections, right? When people are jamming in 150 lineups, that's what really dictates ownership and things like that. So with Ronald Jones being priced below them, he's going to eat up a good chunk of the ownership by the time everything adjusts to it. So those little 5,000 to 6,000 running backs are going to be really juicy in tournaments. Keep your eye on that as the week progresses. Let's go to wide receiver. And this is just, I mentioned at the top of the show, just an absolutely loaded mid-tier. And the receivers they're really flat pricing on DraftKings. Basically everybody good is like 5,500 to 7,000. There's usually a bunch of crap 5,000 and below, and there's a couple of elite players like Hopkins and Michael Thomas that'll, and Devontae Adams, if he was healthy, that'll kind of float up towards the top. But everybody's sandwiched in. You just can't fit all these dudes on a roster because you only got 3 or 4 spots for wide receivers. So cash games, a couple guys I'm looking at. I mean, without Chris Godwin, right? Maybe even with a Scotty Miller, maybe banged up a little bit. Mike Evans is 6,400. What? That looks pretty good. You talked about Robert Woods / Cooper Kupp. Woods is just 6,300. He's got some rushes. He's always in the mix. If he ever catches touchdowns, he's going to be in line for a good week against the Giants. That's a good way to maybe look right there. I mean, I could just keep going down. You've got Will Fuller, if he's going to be healthy against Minnesota at 5,900, looks pretty good. Odell Beckham Jr. I know you like Baker Mayfield. DJ Moore is going to be the chalk play at 5,600. Robbie Anderson's out producing him across the board. He's even cheaper. There's just this little mid tier at wide receiver is so strong. I know you like Tyler Lockett, 7,000, right? You don't even need something like that this week. So this allows you to get something like those high-end running backs. You can get a Kamara or Zeke or maybe both and just jam in this $5,000 to $6,200 tier at wide receiver. Maybe you go a little cheaper at tight end than everybody else, but I don't know if I really like the tight end everyone's going to be using this week. We'll talk about that as we progress through the show, but man, I just love this mid-tier at wide receiver. It's so good. Take a look at all those guys. DJ Moore is going to be the chalk of the week. We got to see what else plays out there. But Odell at 58 in an up-paced game, I think his targets are certainly going to rise this week. And then the Mike Evans, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen got 19 targets. That doesn't happen all the time. And if Herbert's just going to lock onto him, right, in Hard Knocks, he goes, Keenan, you're my dude, right? Well, they're not lying to us this year. Mike McCarthy's not lying. Justin Herbert's not lying to us. He loves Keenan Allen. I mean, to get 19 targets for 6,500, it happened last week. It's probably not going to happen this week, but it's within the range of outcomes. I mean, these prices are just too good to pass up in the mid-tier wide receiver.
Yeah, I hear you. Honestly, just when I've been making these builds, I want the, Russell Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett stack. And then with Kamara, it's once you start getting more of these options, like you said, you got to go down a tight end. And I think you might have to go down at one more spot. If you want to do that, then I think you can take a look at these Patriots complimentary wide receivers. Those are the only guys I think got 4,000 and under that you can, reasonably feel good about getting, 5-6 plus targets in a matchup against the Chiefs defense that, I think the storyline coming out on Monday night is that the Chiefs shut down Lamar Jackson. I mean, not really. He still ran all over him. He missed Hollywood Brown for 2 would-be long touchdowns. Mark Andrews had a touchdown go off his hands. I mean, that game could look very differently if they played it out more than 5 times. Cam Newton, his passing offense, we saw what they did against the Seahawks. It's a game where they're projected out to play from behind. I think N'Keal Harry at 4,000 and even Damiere Byrd at 3,000. We're getting 2 of the 3 wide receivers that are on the field and 3 wide receiver sets for the Patriots when they want to throw the ball. Obviously, Edelman's, the favorite to do his thing. But, as I think we can see, defense is really focused on Edelman. Cam has to go elsewhere with the ball. Wouldn't be shocked. And it's just a little bit of chance for salary relief. So, not going to disagree with anything he said. Mike Evans is the guy that's standing out to me. Like, man, last week it was, Allen Robinson. This week I think it's Mike Evans, where it's like maybe just lock this guy into almost every single lineup because, I just don't see him, finishing under 100 and, a touchdown. So he's not really as chalky.
6 receptions, 10 yards, 6 touchdowns for Mike Evans.
he's the Jordan Howard of the wide receiver position right now, but seriously, man. So love that. And yeah, so if you really want to get, a little, maybe I do need to come off Kamara and just take, Mike Davis so I can pay up for another one of these wide receivers or something like that. But I do think N'Keal Harry at 4,000, Damiere Byrd at 3,000. That's about the lowest you can go and still feel somewhat okay about it.
Yeah, one note, it does look like Mike Williams is probably going to be out. He remains sidelined for today's practice. I just saw that cross. Those Keenan Allen targets, the Austin Eckler targets, those are going to be there. So keep an eye on that. If we like the Patriots offense, Ronald Jones, Mike Evans, maybe even a Gronkowski, maybe you hear me talk about him in just a little bit. You're going to want a couple of those Chargers players too to run it back with, and I think there's plenty of options on that side. Anything else at wide receiver you want to hit on, or you want to go to the tight end position?
Real quick, couple of GPP guys. We're looking at this Rams offense. They're just going to run all over the Giants, which they very well might. But you know what? They got to put up points somehow. And Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods still both priced under 7K. It's like a poor man's version of kind of the Seahawks passing game, where okay, they're not going to be quite as explosive, quite as pass happy, but still pretty much condensed around those 2 guys more weeks than not. So Goff, Kupp, Woods stacks could be a nice contrarian stack there. Tyler Boyd at 6,100, is kind of getting lost among these guys. But again, really like that matchup for Burrow. And if Burrow's going to have a big day, Boyd's probably going to be right there along with them. Also got Higgins and AJ Green as cheaper options. The last guy I mentioned is Golden Tate at 4,600. He's healthy. He's playing a full-time role. Darius Slayton's probably going to be the one with Jalen Ramsey tracking him all over the field. We saw what happened with the Giants last week. It's It's tough to really put your stick and neck out there for anyone on this team. I get it. But if you do want to, have a little dance with the devil here, go ahead and go with Golden Tate.
Jason Garrett offense, I'm going to pass in the year 2020.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Just not working too good. They'll have a couple of good games. I think their offense, even just with Saquon gone and with Sterling Shepard gone, the target tree so condensed that eventually they're going to have a good game. I don't hate Tate. Let's go to tight end. I want to talk about the Waller baller here because he's looking. Everybody is falling over themselves to play Darren Waller this week. It looks like based off projected ownership, and sure, right after the 16 target game against New Orleans in week 2, why wouldn't you want to do that? You got Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards, they're out, right? Why wouldn't you want to play Darren Waller? I just see the Bills sort of doing the same thing that Bill Belichick did last week, and just hey, someone else, anybody. Beat us, right? Because it's not going to be Darren Waller. He's the only guy who can consistently move the chains for the Raiders on offense in the passing game. And if you take him away, that offense is just going to struggle. I don't see why the Bills don't sort of follow that same game plan. They got 2 reasonably good coverage linebackers back last week, so they can cover Waller, decently well. Why don't they put Tre'Davious White, and have him work on some Darren Waller once in a while? I don't think that's out of the question. So everybody's looking at Waller. I'm going to have to really think about it. I know, I look at the Blitz and a couple other projections. They really like Waller this week because they think the target share is really going to be there. I don't know. I'm not so sure about it. I'm looking at hopefully he's not TJ Blockinson, and hopefully he's TJ Lockinson, because I'm looking at him against the Saints. And this just looks like the juiciest matchup. The Saints can't stop anybody at tight end right now. Stafford's back. Galladay's in there. He's going to be running the deep routes. Hawkinson should be able to operate over the middle. They're not passing the running backs with Adrian Peterson back there, right? It's going to the guys we know it's going to be going to in the passing game. And if we like the other side of the ball to maybe score some points, why can't TJ Hawkinson have him? So I'm looking at him for a swerve. I think I'm probably on an island on that in the DFS world, but I'm okay being on an island, even in cash games, if it's something I believe in. Had 7 targets last week against Arizona, 16, 10, and 9 fantasy points. I don't really see how he kills you, especially if this game scores a lot of points and Stafford has to sling it around.
I think it's a perfect spot for Hawkinson. I got my attention brought to Hawkinson earlier this week. I had Dwayne McFarland, Context Matters, on Twitter. He came on the PFF Fantasy Football podcast, which I'm putting out there 5 days a week, and pretty much brought up that, hey, while Hawkinson didn't have a good game at all in that flow chart matchup against the Cardinals last week, season high in snaps, season high in routes. They really seemed to elevate his role, which was surprising with Galladay coming back in that game. But, it ended up being Hawkinson that was out there more than even any other wide receiver. So, it's taken a while, but it might actually be, Galladay 1, Hawkinson 2 in the pecking order moving forward. And with the matchup thrown in there, I'm with you. If you can't pay up that much for him and you got to try to go cheaper, though, I think Logan Thomas at 3,500 is the answer. It's just in terms of opportunity. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and stand for anyone that's watching offense other than Terry McLaurin at this point. Brutal match against the Ravens, I get it. But you know what? Only Darren Waller, Noah Fant, and Travis Kelce have more targets at the position this year. I mean, it's just, if we can get literally 8 targets at 3,500, you got to do it to try to get.
What's a Dwayne Haskins? I'm starting. I've been on Thomas every week, but these Dwayne Haskins targets are garbage. Like they count as like a half a target in my book when you're on the spreadsheet. That's what I'm putting them at.
That's a interesting idea, though. I guess we already kind of have some weighted targets, but I've always weighted targets in terms of like downfield or in the red zone, but actually incorporating the quarterback. I like where your head's at there, bro.
Oh man, just there's talk. I guess they had a little meeting with Haskins, and they said if you play like crap again, someone else is going to be playing quarterback in Washington pretty soon. So don't know if that happens this game, but just keep an eye
over under 2.5 quarters this week for Haskins.
I'd take over for sure.
Okay.
I would imagine. So I want to talk a tournament play, and I'm going to look Undertaker gif. Rob Gronkowski. He has come back to life here. So he surfaced or rose up to about 90% of the snaps last week after he was a little bit lower than that through the first 2. And OJ Howard saw a decrease on snaps. So it's clear that, hey, through the first couple weeks, and this is what Bruce Arians nonsense, right? Rob Gronkowski's a blocker. He's a blocker. And then he gets the most targets of anyone on the team last week. So if he's going to be out there, I think it's a reasonably good matchup. The Chargers defense is pretty garbage. You always want, these trends, right? I saw it with Jonnu Smith. I had Hunter Henry last week. These big home favorite tight ends. This is when they have the outlier performances. So why not take a look at Gronk this week? Everybody's going to be playing Ronald Jones. I would imagine, like the running back, if he's not scoring touchdowns, those close touchdowns, it's usually the big pass catching Gronk scoring touchdown machine, right? So you get a little bit of swerve, a little bit of leverage on the Ronald Jones ownership, which is going to creep up as we approach Sunday. I think it's a great spot. I expect the snaps to stay up there. They're hurt everywhere else. Why won't Tom Brady find Rob Gronkowski again this week?
So we got Mike McCarthy and Justin Herbert as truth tellers.
Bruce Arians a liar.
I ate that up last week too. I believed him. I was like, yeah, okay, Gronk, he's a blocker. Even Gronk said it. And then, yeah, it goes out there and gets fed the ball like no other. So, yeah, I like that call. I'm looking at Mike Gesicki at only 5,100. He is a wide receiver. He has only played 14 total snaps as an inline tight end through 3 weeks. I mean, truly, he is their slot receiver. Now, it's annoying because Isaiah Ford is out there a lot too. Preston Williams and Devontae are kind of the top two, and then Gesicki and Ford are more or less splitting snaps in the slot. So it's not ideal. But with that said, this is a game we talked about Fitzpatrick and Russ and the potential for points to be flying on the scoreboard. And Gesicki is a slot receiver going against the Seahawks defense that we've seen get annihilated by, Edelman, CeeDee Lamb, pretty much everybody this season. And as weird as week 3 was, Fitz only had 20 pass attempts. Like, that's not going to happen in more weeks, not moving forward. I'm going to really go on a ledge here and go on a limb here and say that the Dolphins are not going to build a multi-touchdown lead over the Seahawks by halftime. So potential shootout. I love the Fitz Magic, Devontae Parker stacks, obviously, but round that out with Gesicki or Preston Williams, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that. Give me like 30 seconds on defense is what you're looking at, and then we'll get to the part of the show everyone really wants to tune in for.
Yeah. Mentioned Texans at 2,500. I think that's the only cheap defense you can really have any sort of confidence in. I mean, I get it. Horrific opening stretch. And now Cousins, is popping as someone, mentioned before in the mismatch manifesto as that could be dealing with a lot of pressure. Most of the bottom tier defenses below 3,000. They're just all facing really good offenses. And I don't know if Minnesota deserves to be called that at the moment outside of Dalvin Cook. One GPP I really like is the Chicago Bears at 3,100. You can actually stack them with Dave Montgomery and get a little contrarian on him. I mean, look, Rivers, he's been good these last 2 weeks and they haven't had to do anything, but we remember week 1 when his, deep ball was fluttering more than ever against the Jaguars of all teams. I mean, if they have to pass the ball a lot in Chicago, I can see it going south for him pretty quick. All of a sudden, Hilton's really their only relevant, receiver with Pittman and Campbell both out. So outdoors in Chicago, you get in the Montgomery stack, and Bears are 3-0. And you mentioned with the PFF team grades, I really wanted to call the Bears frauds. And I don't think they're a good 3-0 team, but they are pretty complete right now. I think they're a top 5 team in PFF's overall team grade. So only 3 weeks. And again, I'm not sitting here calling the Bears a top 5 team by any stretch, but you know what? Guys like me are wrong all the time. And if we're wrong on them, Bears and Montgomery could be a nice little stack.
All right, let's get into the helicopter plays. If you guys want to check this out, you can go over to PFF. This is free. There is no paywall on this article if you want any more in-depth stuff. Ian, go over what these are. You got 5 plays. I'll throw in a couple of myself and we'll get on over here.
Yes, sir. We are not just looking for, low price blow up guys. We're looking for low price blow up guys that also nobody else is on. So Sunday main slate only, can't have a top 5 price tag at the position and can't have ownership above 5%. Britt and I are looking a little bit different projected ownerships from sites. So if it's a little bit over,
use the RotoGrinders one.
If it's a little bit over on one of our ends, you don't need to cancel us too quickly. But, unfortunately, I'm 0-3 on the final ones this year. Russell Wilson felt like throwing 3 touchdowns from the 1-yard line last week. I'm not bitter at all. It is what it is. But, I'm feeling good about this week. And the 5 guys I got, Joe Burrow, mentioned before, already a top 10 fantasy QB. And now with the softest matchup of the year against the Jaguars defense that can't pressure the quarterback. And that seems to be, the biggest problem facing this Bengals offense. So I think we could really get his true coming out party. Jonathan Taylor is someone that, we should be treating as a top 5 back here moving forward with Marlon Mack out. We haven't quite seen the blow up over the last 2 weeks, and Jordan Wilkins has been involved. But if you look at the snaps in non-garbage times moments, it's truly just been the Jonathan Taylor show. I mean, the snaps haven't even been close. He's at 66 snaps, Hines at only 25, and Wilkins at 15 in non-garbage time moments over the past 2 weeks. So Taylor is the true RB1 against a Bears defense that really hasn't been good against the run. I mean, I know mentioned it was contrarian, GPP play, but third worst defense in the league right now in yards before contact allowed per rush. That's problematic against someone like Taylor. If it's a neutral game script, I think we're looking at 25 plus touches at minimal ownership. Other side of the ball, David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen's gone. And look, as the self-pronounced president of the Cordero Patterson fan club, I would love to sit here and tell you that this dude's going to step into Tariq's role. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Montgomery is going to eat up those snaps, flirt with 80% or more touches. And this guy's a competent pass receiver. But because of Mike Davis, David Johnson, Kenyon Drake, all those guys in that range, Montgomery's actually going under the radar, even though, his price is as reduced as it is, despite having the big role increase. So, rolling it back with him, I think makes sense. And at the wide receiver position, Keenan Allen, maybe he'll get more chalky with Mike Williams out now, but yeah, man, I mean, 28 or 29 targets, whatever it is, over the last 2 weeks. Just hard to expect that not to keep coming. I know the Buccaneers defense is good, but also they really haven't been tested to start this year. Not saying Herbert represents the biggest test. I know it's a rookie quarterback and all that, but at some point volume needs to win out. And then finally, Jarvis Landry, maybe the favorite at this point for me, because he's sitting there at I believe only 5,100. Yeah, he's right there. Not right. Yeah, 5,100. And I thought, just based on his target usage this year, I figured they were kind of easing him in with that hip coming off offseason hip surgery, just wasn't getting the snaps. That's not the case. He's only run three fewer routes than Odell Beckham all season. The problem has been in this, Minnesota North offense the Cleveland Browns are doing pretty much. Beckham's been the guy in the Stephon Diggs role, getting the downfield targets. Landry's more in the Adam Thielen underneath the intermediate role. We just need someone to make this offense pass, though, because Jarvis is still locked in as the number 2 guy. He's caught 12 of 13 targets. He's averaging career high marks in yards per target. So he's truly looked fine out there, and he's getting all the, per route opportunity, just hasn't gotten the overall targets yet. So situation where, Mayfield, 23 pass attempts in weeks 2 and 3. He had more in weeks 1, but that was against, the Ravens elite secondary. Cowboys are not going to be confused with the Ravens secondary anytime soon. I think it's a sneaky spot where everyone is jumping on OBJ. Deservingly, he's in a good spot too, but popping up with that back injury, I think Landry might be the appropriate pivot and really pop off in this spot.
All right, 2 I'm going to throw into the ring. I'm going to throw Austin Eckler. That condensed target tree without Mike Williams is really showing itself. It's Austin Eckler, it's Keenan Allen, and it's Hunter Henry, and really nobody else is involved in that offense when Justin Herbert's at quarterback. So I like him against the Bucs, allowing the 4th highest amount of targets to running backs. Why? Because they're pretty good everywhere else in the field. So you get a lot of dump offs. Those add fantasy points. If Eckler finds his way into the end zone, I think he's going to have himself a really big day. I'd probably give him, 6 or 7 targets, if not more, in this game. I already mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is my quarterback play of the week. 300 plus 4 total touchdowns. Give me a rushing touchdown. Give me 2 extra fantasy points on that one. Give me some chucking it to Devontae Parker deep. You can have your Gesicki. Run it back with Lockett. Have yourself a good one. This is like my favorite game stack of the week. So I'm looking at Fitz and Austin Eckler as 2 low-owned plays. I think can pop off for some really big games. That's going to do it for the week 4 edition of the PFF show. If you want to check out any of Ian's stuff, head over to pff.com. You can sign up over there. If you want to get $5 off your RotoGrinders premium and you've never subscribed before, use code PFF when you sign up at RotoGrinders here, and you will get your $5 off and get access to Gridiron IQ and Lineup HQ and those ownership projections that Ian was talking about. Again, RotoGrinders ones. Hey, I got a soft spot. I like those ones. That's what I like to use. Ian, it's been fun. See you back here next week. For Ian, I'm Britt. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We out, you.